And I'd like to introduce our next guest this afternoon. He's been a model, a writer, a director, but he's probably best known as an actor. He's played dozens of roles, but he's probably best known for portraying a legendary hero and a science fiction icon. Please join me in welcoming to the Fan Expo stage the actor behind Hercules and Captain Villain Hunt, Kevin Sorbo.
I introduced me as a model. I thought I was going to come out and do a little show for you guys, maybe do a catwalk. But I'm in a good mood, so when you catwalk, you have to have an attitude, right? They also look like they're pissed off about something. Anyway, hi. I just flew in from Austin, Texas.
Can you give me some blue steel? If we're gonna...
Some blue steel. I've been shooting a movie in Austin the last 3 weeks, and it's been 45 degrees every day. And I get to wear, that's why I'm wearing shorts today. I have to wear long pants, long sleeve shirts, and these coveralls most of the time when I'm outside. You know, it's good to be here. I shot a movie here last year, actually. I was in Hamilton. There you go. Now you guys know Hamilton, the Toronto people, when I said I was shooting in Hamilton, they went, oh, I'm sorry. But I had a good time in Hamilton.
What is this lecture for? I don't know. I think we can
just panel. Was I supposed to bring the cast of Hercules and Andromeda? Would have been good. Would have been good. Xena. It's our lesbian spin-off show. We're very proud of that. No, I haven't seen Lucy in a while. I know she's back in New Zealand full time. It's been a long time, but you know, it's like, you know, Michael Hurst and I still keep in touch. We talk, you know, at least once a month. Show pictures of our kids growing up, and we're getting older and stuff like that. Anyway,
sit down, or
I don't know what I want to do. I don't feel like it. Just feels like we're in prison or something. Should I sit down?
I feel like I was staying to the Panther. You know,
should I sit?
Do a catwalk.
Do a catwalk. Will these break if I stand on them?
So you mentioned you shot in Hamilton. Was that the zombie movie?
No, it was called The Santa Suit. It was a nice family movie. It's actually up for the awards coming up next September, October, something. The Canadian awards. I think they're the equivalent of the Emmys.
Gemini's?
Yeah, it's best TV movie in Canada. So The Santa Suit, yay! So hold on just a second. I got to show you something. I'm not going to show you everything, but in this movie I'm shooting right now, they tattooed me up.
Woo! Take it off.
It's weird. The character makes sense. It makes sense. But it was kind of weird to have these tattoos. I feel a little tough going in the gym now.
When people say sometimes they're going straight from the set, they don't really mean it, but you really
I wrapped at 1:30 this morning in Austin. I got home, I got 3 hours of sleep, and then I caught the plane to come to Chicago to come here. So I'm here. I'm back down there. I gotta get back Sunday night. So.
Yeah, before we get started, the comedy bar after the expo. Is this true?
Yes.
Crazy man.
There was some sort of Twitter and Facebook slam dance on me last December and January, and people let me know about it, and so I started twittering these guys back, and I've been invited. I'm hosting tomorrow at the Comedy Bar at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock show, and also on Saturday, so come on out. I know one of the shows is filled up already, the other ones are getting close, but if you want to come out and watch me make a complete ass of myself, I'll be there. I'll be there. It's going to be fun, so I'm looking forward to it.
Now, you do a lot of comedy. What is it about comedy that you like?
I think that was one of the charms of Hercules. I remember during the first, we shot 5 2-hour movies, if you don't remember, back in '93 and '94. And the first movie was a little too serious for me. And I told Sam Raimi, who's our exec producer, some of you may know that name. I told Sam, I said, you know, we got to go to the humor you always had when you worked with Bruce Campbell. I said, we need people to laugh with us, not laugh at us. And so it changed pretty quickly. I think that was part of the charm of the show. You know, I mean, Michael Hurst and I always told Michael we were like the Butch Cassidy and Sundance of our decade, our century in a way, you know. And I call it Baywatch BC because we had a lot of cleavage on the show. Gotta have the cleavage.
He's got cleavage.
Well, not my cleavage. Some women may have liked my cleavage, but thank you. Take the cat calls.
How did you feel about the end of that show? Because it seemed rushed. They only did 8 episodes in that final season.
It was weird. Here's what happened. Universal Studios offered me a 3-year extension on the contract. We were entering season 7. I had reached a point where I kind of wanted to do something else. I loved it down in New Zealand. I loved doing the show. I was thinking about maybe doing something else. I talked to CBS back in LA about doing a new 1-hour detective type of show. And then I got a call one day from Majel Roddenberry, another name you may know. And Majel said, I've got this show that my husband wrote after Star Trek. It's called Andromeda, and that's a true story. That's the first show he wrote. Captain Dylan Hunt, who I played, was the first captain he created after Captain Kirk. So I was always a big Star Trek fan, still am. And they sent me down his notes and his idea for the series, and I said, okay, what's the deal? What are we doing with this? Well, we've already got studio involved, and they wanted you to play the lead, and they've got 2 years guaranteed, 44 episodes, which is unheard of in television. Usually they'll pick it up for 6 or 7 episodes, but this was picked up for 44. And so I told Studio Universal, I said, look, I'm going to do this new series. And they got mad at me. So they didn't finish the season. They only did 8 episodes in season 7, which is ridiculous because they had the time to do it. In hindsight now, they wish they would have done it because Hercules was still doing rather well around the world. It was in 176 countries. And I think it's weird, there's a lot of pettiness in Hollywood. There's a lot of weird egos and deal makings that go on. You guys have no idea in all the studios, there's also like one guy decides what we get to watch. It's strange. It's very strange. What gets made, what doesn't get made. There's always deals. There's always like, I owe you this, so you do that. I mean, it goes back and forth all the time. But that's what happened. And I wish we would have finished out properly because it was rushed.
How was it going physically from Hercules? You obviously were really built for that. And
I was tough. I'm 215 pounds. I was 235 when I did the series. I worked out 2 hours a day at the end of every 12 to 14 hour workday. I did that for 7 seasons. It was a pretty good schedule. It was pretty tough. But I enjoyed it. Number one, I was in New Zealand. When I went down there at the time, I had no connections really. I wasn't seeing anybody. I'm married since then, but at that time it was like, this was my big break and I knew it. So I went there and I gave them everything they wanted, and I had a blast. The show was fun. I loved being on that show. I did. We had fun every day. I wish they would have filmed behind the scenes. You guys can see what we did behind the scenes because it was R-rated and X-rated, but it was fun. And we had a lot of laughs. There's one scene where Michael and I we're in some bar, Yolis and Hercules, and he's sitting across from me in some tavern. And we set up with the camera guy to do this for the guys back in LA, because we're doing Hercules and Yolis, the untold stories. So we had the camera pan down, we're drinking ale and talking really tough macho stuff. The camera pans down, we're playing footsies with each other. So I think people would, it would have been fun. But what I did, I had 6 months when Hercules finished before Andromeda started. And I actually did something I never thought I would do in my entire life. Because I was lifting heavy, then I was benching 350, thinking I was really macho. I hired a Pilates instructor and a yoga instructor. And I tell you, Pilates, it kicks your ass, guys. I'm kidding. You think it's easy. Yoga, forget about it. Downward dog, it sounds fun, but it ain't that fun. And I just stretched out the muscle, lifted really light, and I took 20 pounds of muscle off. But it took a while. I didn't do it quickly. But it was, I didn't want to keep up that workout thing anymore. So, I still do. I still work out every day, but my ego's past that. I don't care about that straight. I'm done.
What's it like when you look back at what New Zealand has done in film now? Obviously, Raimi has gone on to great acclaim. Some guy called Steve Jackson made a few interesting movies.
Peter Jackson. It's true. We were like a huge training ground for the Kiwis down there. They'd never had that type of production. Because we ended up hiring, once Xena kicked off in season 3, we even had season 5 kick off with young Hercules. I don't know if people remember that. It only lasted 1 season, but that was Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
And I remember when the show got canceled after a year, and Ryan was so bummed out. I took him for dinner, we went out, and he was like 20 at the time. I said, Ryan, because he thought it was the end of the world, I said, you're a pretty good actor, you can do really well. Well, now he's up for Academy Award. I said, I saw him out that long. I said, dude, put me in one of your movies. It was the love. But It was. We started quite a thing down there where the Weta Group, Richard Taylor and his creative guys who did all of our creatures, who ended up winning all these Academy Awards on Lord of the Rings and King Kong, and Nyla Dixon, who did all of our costumes, she won the Academy Award. It was an amazing, and they say that too. Richard says it all the time. It was a huge learning curve for all of us, myself included. And it's a big part of my life. I miss it. I do. I had a great time doing it, and it's something I always hold near and dear to me. And I'm not kidding when we laughed every wonderful time. I wish he could have hung out, man. It was cool.
I'm going to ask questions, by the way, for another 15 or 20 minutes, and I'm going to open it up to you guys. I just wanted to cover some of the bases, but of course I've got to go to...
You're late. We're done.
Got the phone call from Rachel Roddenberry. You got the lead in Andromeda. What was your reaction? I mean, first of all, as a longtime Star Trek fan, what was your reaction?
I'm just as geeky as any of you guys, trust me. Yeah. To go to her house in Bel Air, but actually Leonard Nimoy lives 6 houses down the road from her, which is kind of cool. And I got to go in Gene's, I never got to meet Gene, obviously, but I got to go in the house. I sat in his desk. She hasn't changed anything since he passed. Well, she's passed away now too, but she kept it exactly the same. I sat in his desk. I saw the early replicas of the Enterprise, like the original ones. I said, would he miss one? It was so cool. And to read his notes, I mean, he was a very bright guy, but he had the things he didn't know. He would, like the original episodes of Andromeda, that he just had ideas. And you read his ideas, and he gets to things he doesn't know the words for. He just puts in parentheses, he puts tech. Because he always brought in real space aeronautical engineers or somebody else that knew what the hell they were talking about to take care of all that space stuff. And it was cool just to be in that presence of that desk and realize that office, to see this is where this guy created all these things that have had such a huge impact. I mean, you all know Star Trek only lasted 3 seasons. They pulled it off the air because they thought it was a failure. And obviously they were kind of wrong. And I told Shatner, he'll be here later, I told him many times, I said, you know, my show went 5 years. Let's talk about that.
Patrick Stewart, though, can up you by 2 more years.
Because we were actually supposed to have a 7-year run on it, and what had happened was Tribune Company out of Chicago that owned it. If any of you guys know the business part of Tribune, they own the Cubs, so you know they're in financial problems. But they went bankrupt. There was all kinds of stuff going on where they had to claim bankruptcy, so they canceled. We were supposed to have 2 more years. They had to cancel our show, even though we were #1 in the States in first-run syndication. They canceled Mutant X, which was shot up here in Toronto. They canceled Beastmaster, which they owned, which was shot down in Australia. So they had to cancel all these things, and they've been in bankruptcy court for the last 5-6 years. So it was kind of a bummer. We would have had 7 years out of it.
Oh, the fans would have loved that because the show's still there.
I know, it's still, both shows are still in like 100 countries around the world. I shot a movie last year in Mykonos, so be Hercules and go to Greece sometime. It still airs there. I seriously was like a full god in that country. It was really cool. It was so cool. And, you know, it would just walk in the streets and people just went crazy. And I felt like a frickin' Beatle. It was pretty neat. It was pretty neat. And we had a good time doing that.
Back to Andromeda for a second. The show was really created by Gene Roddenberry, but then crafted by a young writer called Robert Hewitt Wolfe, who had worked, you know, on Star Trek, and he really honed his craft there, and then came over. What was he like to work with from your point of view?
Robert's brilliant. Here was the problem. We lost Robert at the end of the 2nd season. And I found out later that that's sort of the MO Tribune. They fire all their showrunners after 2 years. They did it on Earth Final Conflict, they did it in Beastmaster, they did it on Mutant X, and they did it on my show as well. We wanted to keep Robert on because for me, you know, more humor sort of came in during season 3, 4, and 5, but I like the darkness that Robert, the way he wrote. He's a very bright guy, and I was coming up with a show like Hercules where there was so much humor in it. I was looking forward to playing a more human character that had all these flaws and had all these things, obstacles he had to overcome. And, you know, we kind of lost that a little bit. I mean, it was interesting what happened in seasons 3, 4, and 5, but still, there was an interesting fire.
It was interesting interesting too, because he obviously planned a 5-year arc.
Oh yeah, we have to. Every showrunner has to plan a 5-year arc. Otherwise, the studios won't even look at you. They have to. When you come in to pitch a show, you have to give them a 5-year arc of the show, what you know the show's going to go.
But so few shows go that far anymore.
No, we go 2 episodes and so when Andromeda finished, I actually did a half-hour sitcom for ABC called Bobby Cannon. And it was a show that I've been working on with an idea I've been working on with my manager for about a year and a half. And we brought it to ABC, and ABC loved it, and they said, get a showrunner for it, and we'll talk about doing this. Well, Bobby Cannon is a story, it's like the Brett Favre story. I play as a quarterback that's sort of at the end of his career, but it was like Cheers meets Coach is what it is. And the showrunner we got was Barry Kemp. You may not know his name, but you know his work. He was the head writer on Taxi, he was the creator of the Bob Newhart series, and he created Coach with Craig T. Nelson for 9 years. Well, we did the show. What they do with new shows is they go around North America and test them. They bring them to different cities, and they pay people $50 to sit and watch it and say what you like or don't like. Well, we tested #1 in every city they brought it to, the 8 cities they brought it to. The president of ABC and his wisdom didn't pick us up. And his reasoning was, even though we tested #1 in every city, his reasoning was that Friends and Everybody Loves Raymond had just gone off the air that year. We had everybody from those two, we had the wardrobe, the camera, we had everybody from those shows come to work on ours. And his reasoning was, he found it too old-fashioned, like in Everybody Loves Raymond. And I said, yeah, you wouldn't want one of those, would you? And I haven't worked for ABC since. There you go.
Let's talk about another couple of interesting paths in your career that didn't happen. One of them is that you were beaten out by Dean Cain on Lois and Clark.
I got down, this is a tough story for me, this one, because I got down, there he is right there. See, you look more like Dean Cain anyway. I got down to the last 2 guys for that. They brought me in a number of times for it, and Dean a number of times, and I get a call from the very last audition from Barbara Miller, who was the head of casting at the time over at Warner Brothers. She said, Kevin, you got the part. I flipped out, man. My agent, we went out, we had champagne, but the next morning they called and they said they changed their mind. Welcome to the business of Hollywood, seriously. I went from the highest high I could possibly, because I knew that was my big break, to the lowest of lows. Dean makes a better Superman. I made a good Clark Kent with the glasses and stuff like that. It really went to the right guy. But on top of it all, as fate would have it, 6 months later I got Hercules. That show got canned after 3 years, mine went 7. So, he's a friend, I let him know. But I was fortunate to have that happen.
Just before coming here, I did an interview with Ethan Phillips, and we talked about the life of an actor and the life of an actor being filled with rejection. How do you handle that? You've just been up for an iconic role, and you don't get it.
That's why we get tattoos and do drugs. It sucks. The audition process is horrible. It is. It's horrible. You walk into a room, it's a white wall, and you have anywhere from 3 to 10 people in the room, and they are looking at you saying, what don't I like about this guy? I mean, literally, I was exec producer on this sitcom I told you about earlier, and it did get picked up. For me to be inside for the 3 months building up to that show, it blew my mind, the stuff that goes on, what they say about the actors, and they walk out. They forget that I'm also the lead in the show. I'm sitting right there. I mean, we got down the last 5 women that played a love interest for me. They ended up going with Kate Walsh. You may know her from Private Practice. She got that show right after they decided not to pick up mine. Well, as each one of them walks out, the 3 of the female producers on the show will go, did you see what she was wearing? And I go, well, we'll have a wardrobe, won't we? I mean, she was good, you know? It's like high school. It's the weirdest thing, and this is how these television shows get made. Once again, the egos get involved, and you go, this is ludicrous how things get put together. And the president, my buddy from ABC, when they did the final screen test with me, with the girls, he stood up and said the room, like 25 of the people that work underneath him, said, you know, I didn't like any of them. What do you guys think? Well, everybody's afraid to say anything because they want to keep their jobs. It's a domino theory there. If you guys remember Bewitched with Larry Tate, And you know, he always would yell at Darren about stuff, and then the client would go, "I like it." Well, I like it too. You know, he changed his mind. He's like that. That's what they do in Hollywood. So I stood up and told him who I liked, but it's weird. It's everybody's afraid to voice their opinion. They're just, it's job security, I guess.
Did everybody see that? Kevin Sorbo touched me. And not in that way.
No. I was thinking that. You heard it. Correct that.
So I wanted to, but another rejection. You were up for the lead in a little show called The X-Files. You lost out to David Duchovny. What was the story there?
They wanted someone shorter and not as good looking, I think. You know what? David was great, man. You know, I don't get jealous of other actors. I might look at a part and wish I had that part. And I don't look at it and say, oh, I would have done it better. I say, you know, we would have done it differently. You know, and obviously the show was a huge hit. I like the show too. I got down. It's like the last 4 or 5 guys for that one. But it was, like I said, you know, it's part of Hollywood. You got to get ready to put up with all the doors slamming in your face because it happens all the time.
Your career, you've done so many different things. Did you ever worry about being typecast? Because you've been able to do comedy, you've been able to do things like Cowl, you've been able to do Soul Surfer, you've gone all over the map.
Yeah, well, I think that's one reason why I left Hercules when I did, because I was saying, you know, I don't want to become the Gilligan of my show. And I really had this chance with Andromeda, and it was a different character. I mean, it was such a big thing for E.T. when I chopped off like 8 inches of my hair that they actually showed up at the barbershop to tape it and put it on E.T. It was kind of funny. They auctioned off the hair to raise money for my foundation, so it was kind of funny. But it was, yeah, I was kind of ready to do other things, and the last 3 or 4 years, I've really mixed it up. I've got about 5 other movies in the can ready to come out, and the one I'm shooting now, I go from here to shoot 3 more until Christmas time. And I've got a new TV series, hopefully it gets picked up, that we shoot next year. It's an hour dramedy called Me Too. It's James Bond meets Austin Powers. It's a mixture of stuff.
And you play Mini-Me, obviously.
I don't. No, it's a pretty cool show. It's actually I play a guy that, you know, he's in his 40s now, and he's the James Bond type of guy, but his back hurts a little bit more. He says, you know, he groans when he sits down, and they want me to train the next big, you know, young stud coming up to replace me, and as things go along, I find out we have so many things in common, and we discover that he's my clone. Oh. It's me too. It's a pretty cool. They got it grown. That means it's going to be a hit.
But people will be looking for Me 1 because they thought they might have missed it.
That's true. That's true.
What you just mentioned your foundation. Could you tell us a little bit about A World Fit for Kids and how long you've been involved with that?
World Fit for Kids is a foundation I've been spokesperson for 14 years, and we're based in Los Angeles. It's a mentoring program where we train inner city teens to become mentors of younger children in their community. We fight with childhood obesity, of course. Physical education is a big part of it. Prepping them and preparing them for getting in the real world. College education is a big part of it. I work with over 12,000 kids in LA County. LA County is no different than most of the big cities across America, where LA County has a 54% dropout rate starting as low as 5th grade. 12,000 kids we're able to take. We have a 98% graduation rate in that same pool of kids, and we have a 67% higher GPA average.
Nice.
So I'm pretty proud of the work we do with them. I go to DC, thank you. I go to Washington, D.C. twice a year to speak with Congress about raising money and keeping after-school programs around. We're trying to go nationwide with it now. And I show them what we do, and I say, what is it that you guys can't do with the stroke of a pen that I'm doing right here? I mean, it's amazing to me how we're just letting our kids get the public education that they're getting today, and it's just, for the last 5 decades, it's just been slowly going downhill, worse and worse. Our brightest 8th graders in America cannot compete with Asia's dumbest 6th graders, for lack of a better term to put in there. They can't compete with them. And it's weird that you don't want to improve that. I find that very strange to me. I don't understand the logic there. So I'm trying to fight the good fight with that. But we have a big golf tournament coming up. Really, anyone is welcome. It's 6 weeks away. It's in Napa Valley. Go to worldfitforkids.org. We got the Doobie Brothers performing. We've got a comedy night. It's gonna be good. It's September 23rd through 25th.
How many golfers do we have here?
We got some golfers, and you should check it out. It's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a good one. And September 24th happens to be my birthday, so.
You mentioned a number of projects you've got coming up. One of them is I've heard about this project. Maybe it's not real, I don't know. Sorbo is legendary. What can you tell me about that?
I saw the series of the Sci-Fi Channel. They're very interested in doing it, but they're dragging their heels. We sold them about a year and a half ago, and they keep saying they're going to do it, keep saying they're going to. I just got a call like 2 weeks ago saying they're going to do it, and I said, I'm not going to wait for you guys anymore. But anyway, it's called Legendary, and the idea really spawned from the Tim Allen movie, Galaxy Quest.
Yes.
Where I play a guy that has never, I play Kevin Sorbo, and I haven't worked a stitch since Hercules finished. And so 11 years later, I haven't done anything. I'm willing to take anything as a gig. And this kid comes up to me, he's now 23, 24, he grew up watching the series, he's a big fan, and he tells me that the gods and the creatures that I fought on the show are real. And the stars of every couple thousand years, the Titans are released and everything. When the stars and all the gravitational pulls, everything aligns, they become real, and they're in LA. Because, let's face it, in LA, if a Hydra went across the street, no one would see it as a movie. So pay attention to it. So this kid wants to pay me $1,000 that he's put together to come show me one of the creatures. And I'm like, I'm so freaking hard up. I was like, I'll go. So he brings me in the sewers, and we get down there, and around the corner, there's a real Hydra, and I run out like a little girl screaming. He's like going, what are you going to do? I said, what do you want her for? I said, that's a freaking Hydra, kid! And, you know, they love it. It's sci-fi, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with it. It'd be their only half-hour comedy that they've ever done in Sci-Fi Channel, so I think they want to do it, but it hasn't happened yet.
What do you guys think? Would it work?
The Bible is done, the 5-year plan is done, and the pilot episode is very, very funny. So.
Now, obviously, you've worked in TV, you've worked in movies. Which do you prefer and why?
I've had a good run with the movies lately. I know people saw Soul Surfer. It's a really lovely movie. Thank you. What if? 2 people. It did really well. Check it out. It's the story of Bethany Hamilton. I don't know if you know the girl that 7 years ago lost her arm to a tiger shark attack. It's a wonderful story. I'm in it with Dennis Quaid, Helen Hunt, and Carrie Underwood. We shot it last year in Hawaii for 2 months, which was really tough duty. And yeah, you know, I liked in the movies, but I'm kind of ready to get back into television because I want to stay in one spot. I've been traveling a lot. Like last year, I was gone 8 months out of the year, and it's nice to travel, but you know, and the kids and all that, it gets tough. So you know, it's hard to. I like it. I like the business, but I got a little nod at television because I like the 9 months of continuous work, but also the 9 months of different things. Because even on Hercules, every day was a different day.
Sounds good. Well, I'd like to do the humane thing and open it up to you guys. Does anybody have a question for Kevin? Yes,
the hat?
You in the hat.
Do you consider yourself a success?
The question was, do you consider yourself a success?
Oh,
Yes.
I'll be at the street playing guitar tonight. In fact, I can play a little bit of James Taylor and stuff. Yeah, I think you go into Hollywood, the odds are against you. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I was in an acting class back in 1991 and 92, and Kevin Costner used to study at that class, and he came in while he was filming The Bodyguard with Whitney Houston. He came in and talked to the class, and the first thing he said to us all, he looked around, there was about 60 students in there, and he said, I hate to burst your bubbles, but none of you are going to have success in this business. That's why he started his talk with us. We could hear the room just to get deflated. But I knew what he was talking about. I knew the reality of it. And at the end of his couple hours, I walked up to him, introduced myself to him, and I said, you know, Kevin, I get what you said, but you're wrong, because I am going to make it. He said, oh, that's good for you, good for you. I said, no, I am. So 6, 7 years go by. Now it's 1998. I've been on Hercules for 6 years. And I get invited to play in this golf tournament in Monte Carlo. Prince Albert hosting a golf tournament. You're going to fly me to Monte Carlo, I'll go. So I go to Monte Carlo, I'm on the driving range, I'll say, Kevin, because he knows me as Kevin Sorbo, the actor who plays Hercules now. He doesn't remember that class. And he walks up to me, we start talking, and I said, do you remember the acting coach, Richard Brander? He goes, yeah. I says, I was in that class. You came up and talked to us back in The Bodyguard when you filmed that movie. He goes, I remember coming in there. And I said, remember you said, before I finished, you went, you're the guy. me wrong. I've had that fire me since I was 11 years old, and I always knew I'd have success in this business. I don't know why. And I think any of us, if you put your mind to it, I think fear holds us back a lot in our lives, and we're afraid of failure, so we do nothing. I think you can do anything in this life that you want to. It's just you have to set your mind to it and say, I'm going to do it, and not put up a little negativity around you, because you're going to get negative stuff all the time. It's easy to say you're not going to make it. It's easy, especially in Hollywood, because most people won't. They just won't.
I think it says something that you actually went up to Costner and said, I'm going to make it, and maybe that was why you did. I mean, it's hard to separate that stuff out. Both you and he are very interested in physicality, and when you were young, you played a lot of sports.
I did.
Is that part of that competitive spirit?
Oh, sure. There's no question about it. I grew up in Minnesota. I love hockey too, but I hated cold weather, so I played basketball instead. Played football, basketball, baseball, and all that stuff through school and football in college. Played football and basketball, but I think that's part of it. I think there's whenever anybody says to me I can't do something, I kind of have that teenager kicks in. I mean, I guess. So yeah, I'll show you. Right here. Okay, so the question.
I'm going to start with the last part of the question is, what was your favorite basketball team?
I'm from Minnesota, I should say the Timberwolves, but you know what? I'm a Lakers fan. And I'll tell you the reason why. If a lot of you probably don't know this, or maybe you do, they're from Minneapolis. There's no lakes in LA. Minnesota's a land of 10,000 lakes. They were the Minneapolis Lakers for a long time. In the 50s, they won 5 national NBA championships. And they moved in 1958. Well, my dad was always a fan. So growing up in the 60s as a kid, my dad always, in the 70s, my dad always watched the Lakers. So I grew up watching the Lakers. So it just kind of made sense. But on the flip side of it, I'm also a Boston Celtic fan. So they hate me in LA for admitting that, but I do. I'm a Celtic fan too. So it's, anyway, that's that.
And have you ever felt like you wanted to work
Broadway? Ask about Broadway. I've been asked to come in and do the Richard Gere part in Chicago for the last couple of years. And it's just been a schedule. I would love to do it. I have no problem singing off key, so I would love to do it. I'm actually talking to the Guthrie Theater back home in Minneapolis, where I'm from as well too. So I haven't done theater in a long time, but I would like to. It just comes down. It's such a commitment to get into that, and it's a grind. But I think it would be just good for me to do it. Superman.
I'm going to have to ask this question. I should do it in parts. Go ahead.
He wants to know about the fight scenes in Hercules. Our stunt choreographer, Peter Bell, was amazing. In New Zealand, it's a small country of like 4 million people, so everybody has to do everything. He was a stunt choreographer / hairdresser. For real. So, he put great fight scenes together. When I backhand a guy, they had a lot of wire rigs on them, which were just cool, because I'd be in shot with the guys, they'd pull them, 20, 30 meters away. It was just awesome. In all the years of all the fight scenes we did, because we did like 3 fights every episode, so I did hundreds of fights through the years, I only hit one of my stunt guys, and it was his fault, because I threw an elbow back this way without looking. He missed his mark by a foot. I caught him, boom, so hard in his nose, he backed up, his eyes started blood started coming down. But that was the only time I ever hit any of them at all. They got mad at Michael Hurst because Michael didn't pull his punches. They get pissed off. And they were so good. It's all camera angle. Seriously, I'm this far away. Boom, when I throw it, I miss somebody 6 inches to a foot, and they even they put sound effects on our head turns. That's why the show was just crazy and fun. So it was a great workout because we worked really hard on those. I would go to these $100 million movies and watch some of these fight scenes. I was going, we did better fight scenes on Hercules, and we had, you know, 9 days to shoot an episode. I'm amazed we had such great camera guys. Our DP and head camera operator, John Mahaffey, went on to do the second unit directing on all of the Lord of the Rings. And he actually just finished, he did the Cowboys and Aliens, he's very good, very good, very, very good.
The other thing about that question that I like, though, is I think part of your point was that the stunts and the choreography and the fight choreography were really about character, that it was about Hercules.
Well, there's always plenty of humor in there as well. I mean, Peter and I would always talk about certain things where he said, if I had to kick the sword out of some guy's hand, I said, okay, well, let's make sure the second unit does a shot of that sword flying through the air, because maybe there's a guy I threw 100 yards earlier lands in a cow pie, and as he's getting up, that sword hits him in the head and pots him back in the cow pie. It was stuff like that. I think it made it fun. You know, I'd throw a guy out a bar wall, and the cutout of his body would be in the wall, and you know that's what made the show just. And they let us ad lib and just do stuff like that all the time. It was just stupid. Anyway, way back over here with the camera.
First, do you have your force lance?
Usually women ask me that question.
The question I wanted to ask was, what do you think about the Hercules episodes where you were in the real world? There's that one scene with a bunch of the guys humming at the urinal, and it was like really crazy outside of Hercules. I wanted to hear what your opinion was about those episodes.
Well, first, the Force Lance thing. The Force Lance became quite a joke on the set, because the Force Lance, it was a cool-looking weapon on paper. It was even a cool-looking weapon in habit, but it looked like a dildo. It did. And believe it or not, the first ones had like red and flesh tone colors to it. So they ended up painting them blue, which I said, well, they can go there too. But yeah, you know, just like on Hercules, every episode they had some hot babe to be in the show with me. So I did in 110 episodes of that show, I would eventually pull it out and say, have you seen my Force Lance? And if it was getting like the last day of shooting, the 7th or 8th day of shooting sometimes, the crew would come up and go, you haven't shown your Force Lance yet. And I'm loving it. They put together a huge, I should get the clip, they put together a huge clip of me just one after another. Force Lance. And last season they gave me the double Force Lance. So, you know, the kids show anymore. But what was it? Well, you had another part of that. What was that?
Yeah, in Hercules you had those episodes.
The episodes in Hercules where we went into the real world. We went into. I loved it. There was one where it's like sort of like where I talked I told you about the Legendary show where I'm playing myself, where I play Hercules, but I'm really Hercules, but I'm pretending to be Kevin Sorbo, the actor playing Hercules. So I'm alive thousands of years later, and I'm shooting. And I thought it was great because we made fun of we had all the real production office people in LA being portrayed by the different characters. Like Bruce Campbell would play Rob Tappert, one of our producers, and he just sounded just like him. That's what Rob sounds like. So it was those are fun. I mean, that's what made the show so. You know, we had some serious episodes, but I think it was just fun just to have episodes where you just had a good time. Way in the back there, sir, in the black shirt. You gotta speak up. Salmonius, Robert Trevor. I ran into him about 2 or 3 months ago. I haven't seen him that much. I mean, I know we both live in LA, but you know, there's 20 billion people living in town. But it's but I bump into him occasionally, and you know, I love his character. Something happened with him and Tappert. I don't know what the deal was. They had a falling out somehow, and so they took him on less episodes during his last 3-4 seasons. And I loved his character. It was such a great, just groaner for Hercules to bump into him. But you know, the guy Hercules still had a soft spot for him at the same time. But it's too bad. I don't know what the whole deal was there, but there's always some drama in all these things. Up front here, go ahead. You know, I remember the episode he was on. I know he played a Nietzsche. I'm talking about James Marsters when he came on the show, guest starred on Andromeda. James will make fun of this too because I'm almost 6'4", and Keith Hamilton Cobb is about 6'5", who played Tyr. James is not. They actually gave him these these Eddie Munster, these Munster with like 7-inch heels on them. And he's walking on the hallway with this. But he makes jokes about it all the time. But he was great to work with. I mean, I obviously knew who he was, so it was great that he came up during his off season to work on the show. And he did a great job. I love the Nietzschean character. You know, I thought it was just a really good part to play. But you know, I think that was during Robert Hewitt Wolf's tenure. And I think if Robert was still there, that character probably would have came back a couple more times. Yes, sir, right behind you. Oh, thank you. At the Dove Awards. You were there, or it's on TV? I had a good time doing that. That was in Atlanta. It was fun. I presented the Dove Awards, and there's some great rock Christian music out there. It really is. I was like blown away. Third Day. I think Third Day's an awesome group. I got to meet those guys. They're just rocker dudes that, you know, rock to Jesus. I didn't have a problem. It was kind of cool. Yes. Was it for Michael Herc? Say that again? Oh, Michael, yeah. She wants to know about Widow Twanky, Michael Herc's character on Hercules. For those who don't know it, Michael Herc played a character that was based on his mother. And we saw him do it in a play. Michael does plays year-round. Talk about a theatrical genius. He's brilliant. And the producers decided to put that character in the movie. And it's actually one of my favorite episodes was this dancing episode. Yes, Fancy Free. And that was his first time directing as well. And for him to come up and drag and be serious to me about acting in a scene, I just looked at his fake cleavage and his horrible makeup, and it was hard to keep a straight face. It really was. But it was a funny episode. It's on Netflix now. If you got Netflix, I would check it out. It's called Fancy Free. It's a very, very funny episode. Yes? She's asking about Kevin Smith, who played Ares on the show. I have a lot of great memories of Kevin. Kevin was, when Michael called me and told me about his accident, Michael called me 2 or 3 times a day for 10 days leading up to his death. When I got the final word, we just cried openly. It was tough. It was tough. I was back home in LA, and Michael was in New Zealand, of course. Kevin had an accident on the set in Shanghai where he fell down off some scaffolding, and he was basically brain dead, and they, until he had to pull a plug on him. He was a great guy. He would have had a great career too. He had just booked a part on Bruce Willis' film called Tears for the Sun or something like that. Yeah. Tears of the Sun. And he was my golf buddy down there. He was a shitty golfer. But we had so much. He loved the game. I called him Monkey Boy because he was never in the fairway. He was always in the trees. He had a horrible temper. He wasn't a pretty drunk. He was a tough Kiwi bloke, and we grew up with rugby. But Kevin, he would break clubs. He'd have a bad shot. He'd go down and start doing 30 push-ups. It was just hilarious. And Bruce Campbell would be in that. That should have been a TV show. I'm like the Seinfeld. I'm the straight guy, and you got these two totally off-the-wall guys that just so I have a lot of good memories of him. I always remember the last episode that we did together with Michael as well, and we were on this sand dune, which was one of the first places we ever shot, and here we were 7 years later on that same sand dune. It's like an appropriate place to end this relationship on the series together. And he decided as he walked off, he's all dejected over the whole, Hera and Zeus and all that. I keep foiling him, and so he just says, I give up. And he turns and walks away, and the camera pans off Michael and goes over to him as he's walking up the sand dune. He just decided to start taking his clothes off. That's what the whole way he's going. It was just great. It was very sad to see him go, but I've been down to New Zealand 3 or 4 times since then, and I go to his grave every time I go down there and have a beer and talk to him. He was a great guy. Yes.
Did you or Michael Herc have any pre-training for martial arts?
She wants to know about the pre-training for martial arts. When I got the part, I was actually in Vancouver. I was doing an episode of The Commish with Michael Chiklis. when I'd gone through like this 7 auditions over 2.5 months for the part of Hercules. Every time I went there, I said, what do you guys want? What do you like what you're doing? I said, well, then make up your minds, you know? So I get up there, and I'm working on the set, and I get a message, call your manager. I used to call her manager. She said, you got the part. You're playing Hercules. So I walk on the set, I looked at everybody, and I said, Chickless, I'm not taking any more crap from you, because I'm now Hercules. And they threw me in right away. I had 6 weeks of full-on with Douglas Wong. Douglas Wong was one of Bruce Lee's original students. Just 8 hours a day. It was, I mean, I've always worked out, consider myself in pretty good shape. Man, this guy busted me. It was different stuff too, though, but it was really cool, all the different weapons we got to do and everything. So when we got down there, Michael says he's the fencing champion of New Zealand, and he's won all these awards and stuff. Our first fight we had to do together, the guy hits me in the back of the head with a frickin' sword. Nailed me. I mean, I was out. I was out. Yeah, it was bad. It was an episode where we were introducing Xena's character. It was the first time before we even decided that was going to become a series. It was like a trilogy at the end of season 2. And she talks him into, you know, that I'm the bad guy, which I never bought that storyline. But I guess love does crazy things. And we get in this big fight. And I didn't like one of the moves that Peter Bell had put in there. I said, you know what? He's getting too close to that sword. He goes, don't worry, Mike, I won't hit you. On the first take, boom, down. Split the back of my head open. I had 9 stitches, I had a concussion, I woke up in the hospital. And you look at the replay, he hit me with the flat side of the sword. But he hit me with that, I'm sure it would have killed me. It was, you can see him, and he's like this. And you first thing you learn in anything, in fighting on movies or television, you always, no matter if you're turning, before you kick, you always eye up before you come up to do that kick on somebody or that hit. And I was, oh man. Then he gives me a bottle of scotch. And I said, I'm not a scotch drinker. Give me frickin' Seagram's or Crown Royal or something. Oh, that's Canadian, isn't it? Crown Royal's my favorite, I gotta say. It's good. It's good. Where are we at? I'm going over here. Go ahead, sir.
Have you heard the Chuck Norris jokes?
The what?
Chuck Norris jokes?
I have heard those, yes.
Do they make the same one, like similar ones?
I think they do the same similar ones to me, yeah. I got to do a cover. I did a cover of TV Guide with Chuck Norris. It was him and Sammy. Is that Sammy Hung? Sammy Hung. Yeah. He was doing that series at that time.
Samo.
Was that okay? Once again, because of the height difference on the cover, those 2 guys stand up there. They put me back about 10 in this little herc pose. Oh man! And I told Chuck, I said, Chuck, who cares you're short of me? You can kick my ass. What are you worried about? Oh well, it is what it is. Yes, sir. Front row. That's like a Ginger or Marianne, right? I think Gabby, because I think I got a feeling. We'll talk later. We'll talk later. But President Clinton said it wasn't sex, so anyway. I don't know where we're going with that. Let's go to this side of the room. Wait, Superman 2 over back there. Doing a web series? You know, if something came along, and I know Joe Montana's doing one now. Joe's a friend of mine. He called me up to see if I wanted to come and guest spot on it. I said, you know, if I got the time, I'll do it. I got so much bouncing right now, so I just, if something came along that hit my fancy and I have the time, I'd do it, but it's been kind of crazy right now. Actually, the last couple years too, I've spent a lot of time. I've got my autobiographies coming out October 11th. It should hit bookstores everywhere. It's called True Strength. And I hope you guys go and check it out. It's a good story about a lot of things that happened leading up into Hercules during those years. And I don't know if you guys know or not, but I got pretty sick between seasons 5 and 6. I had an aneurysm in my left subclavicle that exploded, and we didn't tell the whole story about what had happened with that. And this book sort of goes into that. It talks about recovery and having faith and having hope, and hopefully it inspires people. So check it out, October 11th, True Strength. Yes, lady in the back right there. Yes, yes.
Who would win in a fight between Hercules and the new Conan?
Who would win the fight between Hercules and new Conan? The new or old Conan wouldn't be able to stand a chance. Seriously, Hercules had the strength of 100 Conan, so they're strong. I mean, you know, if I went up against, you know, those guys one-on-one in their prime and my prime, it's Kevin and there's, you know, Arnold, I'd get my ass kicked, but I admit that stuff. I got asked on Letterman one time, he said, what's the biggest difference between Hercules and you? And I said, we're a lot braver than I am. You know, if I see 12 people beating up on some people, I might just, I'll call 911. I don't know if I want to throw myself in there. I mean, a friend of mine did that in LA. He was driving back in Sunset Boulevard, it's like 1 in the morning, and he sees right there in Sunset, which is packed all the time. If you guys ever been down to Hollywood, that street is always jammed, especially on a Saturday night. And there's like 4 or 5 guys beating up this guy. He gets out of the car, boom, gun came out into his head. They broke his arm, and he just said, I said, I don't know why I did that. You know, it's sad. I mean, it's sad you can't be a good Samaritan and help things, but everybody in LA is packing, so. Yes, the girl right here.
While you were playing Hercules, did you ever need help with the stunts? Like, was there usually more than one person helping you when you were, like, lifting heavy stuff?
When you were playing Hercules, did you ever need help with the stunts, particularly with the heavy stuff?
Well, I had a stunt guy, and I did most of my stunts. I know actors say that. I did. I really did. I've got 3 knee surgeries and a 4th due and a shoulder surgery coming up to prove it. But for the really crazy stuff, like jumping from the top of a 30-foot building and fall, whatever. No, I let Sam. I go, Sam, there you go. You go do that. And also they would need him. We had a full second unit too. So when we finished shooting a fight scene at one location, the next day we're somewhere else. The second unit would come in. And Sam would obviously have my same outfit on to get the close-up of the boot kicking or a fist coming across or grabbing a sword. So he did all that stuff, just sort of those little pieces you need that kind of help make the show more flavorful in a way. But I was dumb enough and my ego was big enough back then. I did also.
So we have time for one more question. So
go way over here. My episode of 2.5 Men with Charlie Sheen. So you guys want a good story, but I don't know Charlie well. I know him well enough. I've met him many times through the years. I met him when I was in my 20s and 30s, and I don't know why he would throw $2 million a week away like that. But he was nothing but a pro when I was on set. I'm a fan of the show. I think it's a funny as heck show, and it was, it was a crazy episode to be part of, but it was, he was, I'd love to give you some tales here, but I got nothing bad to say about the guy. He was always cool with me and professional with me, so we better take one more because that was quick enough. I'll let you pick this time.
No, I get the tough job. You, sir, over there on the aisle.
When you went back and had to do the DVD commentaries for the show, what was it like watching your stuff and having to remember everything and do the commentaries?
Well, he asked about the commentating when you do the DVD. They're actually reissuing them now, one at a time now. I think seasons 1 and 2 are out. They're doing season 3 for next year. They're just redoing them and making them, whatever they do to them. But that, that wasn't that far after the series finished. So it wasn't that, and to have Michael Hurst in the room with me, it helped to have bounce off each other. Oh yeah, and all this kind of stuff happened. What's weird now is watching, because my kids, I have boys now that are 10, one just turned 10, the other one's 7, the middle girl's 5. They're watching them again now for the first time. And so I'll go downstairs and see an episode from 1996, well, it's 15 years ago. I remember the episode. I see a scene, and that's me talking. I have no clue as to what the scene was about. I have no recall of it all. It's really kind of weird. Maybe it's Alzheimer's, I don't know. But I look at it and go, I know that's me, but I don't remember that scene at all. There's certain scenes I remember, obviously when I watch it, and I remember the episodes as a whole, but I haven't, once I forget episodes completely, then I think there's a problem.
So Kevin will be signing all weekend, but let's now thank him so much for coming.
Thank you. Out there now. Hey, it's good to be back. They've asked me to come a couple more times, and I've been so busy, so it's my first time back in 6 years, so it's kind of nice to be back. So.